Hey guys, I hope you're excited because today, in celebration of the iPhone release and getting my iPhone, I'm going to show you how to design your very first iPhone screen. And I'm going to do that using my little Animoji buddy here over on the corner so we can have a little bit of fun. Alright, so to get started, we can jump into Adobe XD, and if you go into File and Get UI Kits, you can actually download this file that I have here. This is Apple iOS Kit. So you have a few elements that we'll start out with here, and this is nice. I'm going to copy and paste a few things from here, but the first thing I'm going to do is click on File and New. Now we can see here that they don't have an option for iPhone X yet, so we'll just click on this iPhone 6 here, and because I know that the height is 812 pixels, I'll just change that. And the first thing you'll see is this dash down here. That's the viewport height, so we want that to also be 812 pixels. That's just where the fold ends. So we have this really long frame now, and the thing we want to transfer over from the other template, if we go back here, we need to zoom in up here, and we need this status bar. So we can click on there, Command C. We'll switch back over to our other project here, and Command V. Now you can't see it yet because it's in a light background, so let me try clicking around here. There we go, got it. Just snap that to the top here, and just so we can see it, I'm just going to click on this artboard here and change the background to black. There we go, now we can see that. And in fact, I want to change this to just a little dark gray, because the next thing we're going to import, if we jump back here, I'm going to zoom back out holding down Command and scrolling. And on all of these artboards, we have a little frame around these guys, and this is the display shape. So I'm just going to click Command C on my keyboard, come back here, click on this artboard and Command V, and now I can paste that frame inside of here, and we can see the nice curves and notches that we can design around. Okay, now let's jump back and grab one more piece, and that's this little guy right here. Just double click a few times until you get into this little home indicator button. So Command C, switch back, and Command V. So we have the important elements now, the status bar, the display shape, and the home indicator button. And the display shape and the home indicator, we can actually group these things and we can turn them on and off as we design, because these are things that aren't actually going to live in our designs. It's just nice to know where the shapes are so that we can design around it. So real quick, I'm just going to call this display shape, and now I'll just lock this and I'll hide it for now, and I can just turn it on anytime I want to reference that. And now what we're going to do is design a music screen, a music playing screen. So the first thing I'll do is go into my little folder here, and I have a few images. You guys can grab any images you want, really. Any of them will work, but I just got a bokeh image, just some fancy background image here, and I'm just going to rotate this. Boom. Put that here, and just stretch that a little bit. Doesn't matter where you place that. And if I hold down Shift Command and the left bracket, I can bring that clear to the back here. And now what I want to do is draw a little rectangle just as a foreground. So I'll just draw that here, turn it black, and you can just make it the same size as the frame. And I'm just going to give that maybe a like 60% opacity. Make it a little bit dark, and I'll bring that to the bottom as well. So that will just be above this bokeh image. And we have our nice background here. Next, what we'll do is create another rectangle for the music controls. So I'm just going to make this maybe 350. We'll start off with 350 pixels here by 375. And I want these two top corners to be 38 pixel radius. So I'm going to turn this to 38, and I know that these corners right here are 38 pixels too. So if I turn this on here, you can see that that aligns with the shape of the phone itself. But if I hold down Option here, I can bring these radiuses back down because I don't really need to make that radius because the shape of the phone will crop it out anyways. Now I want a background blur. So I'm going to click on background blur here to get things started off. I want it to be pretty bright. And then the opacity, I want to turn it up so it's somewhat white. Just you can still kind of see the blurred effect in the background, but that's a nice shape there. And now I want to create some squares for our album artwork up here. So I'm going to hold down Shift while I create this square. And I think 300 pixels is probably good. So I'll hit this lock icon, turn this to 300 pixels here. And I want a 10 pixel radius on every corner. And I hate borders. So there we go. And I actually want to add just a small shadow here. So this shadow's blur is just 6 pixels here. I'm going to increase the shadow so you can kind of see it underneath here. And now if I hold down Option and drag this over, it'll make a copy. And maybe I'll try 250 pixels. So I'll bring this about right here. And if I hold down Option, I can see that there's 13 pixels between these two objects. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll just make that 20 pixels there. Should look good. And same thing here, 20 pixels. And in fact, if I hold down Shift and nudge it to the right, it'll nudge it 10 pixels. I think I want that to be 10 pixels. So we've got a really nice start here. Now what I also have inside of my Finder, and you guys can just pick any pictures you want, are a few images for my album. So I'm going to just drag one in here, drag a little barn over here, and an album clock over there. And now I also want these objects to be a little bit darker to place more focus on this lion here. So I'm going to hold down Command C, Command V to copy and paste this image again. I'm going to turn off the shadow for this one, and I'm going to change the fill to black and the opacity maybe 60%. And what that's doing is just placing another square image here above this barn here. And now I can hold down Option, bring it over here, and we have those just a little bit darker. Now one thing I want to do is increase the shadow here, but I want to create an effect that has a deeper shadow to make this look like it's lifting off of the page just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is just draw another square here, and it doesn't matter what size you created. I'm just going to do something like this, and I'm going to turn this black. And what you can do, instead of a background blur, you can click on Object Blur here, and that blurs the actual object. And I want this to be probably a 30 pixel blur. Oh, that's too much. 15 pixel maybe. And I can bring this down here, and we can see that that's pretty dark. We don't want it to be that dark, so I'm going to scale back the opacity just a little bit. And we have a nice shadow effect here that we can use for it to kind of lift off of the page. And just play around with that to find an effect that looks good for you. So we're getting off started pretty good. And now I want to add some text. So if I click on the text tool, I can just call this playing from, and I'm going to hit the V key to get to my select tool. Bring that to the center, and I'll hold down Option to copy this. And I'll just call this workout playlist. Okay. So now we'll use a nice SFUI display text that's standard for Apple's style guide, and I'm going to make this really heavy here. And I want this to be white. So I can bring that down here, turn down the opacity just a little bit, and this one I'm going to make 15 pixels and make this totally white. And center this. So we've got something started out, and one thing that we can do right now, if we click inside of this artboard, we can unhide this display shape, and you can see how it's really close to there. So it's nice that we have that display shape for reference. I'm going to just bring this down a little bit, and we will hide that again, and that's looking pretty good. In fact, what I'm going to do is bring these guys down just a little bit more. So if I hold down Option, I can see there's 15 pixels between workout playlist and this album. So I'm going to nudge this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And now we need some controls. So I'm going to create an advanced curve slider here. So bear with me as I create this. I'm going to come off the frame here, and I'll create a circle. I'm going to hold down Shift and just create that perfect circle. And I'm going to make this 640 pixels without a border. Now I can hold down Option and duplicate this, and I want to make this 648 pixels. And now if I select both of these circles and I click on the Align Middle and Align Center, we have something that's pretty aligned. And now we want to pick this larger circle, the 648, and we want to create a square that is 324. It's half of 628. So I'm going to lock the aspect ratio, make this 324 pixels here, and turn off the border. And now I can align this to the very edge of that outer circle, and I'll hold down Option and align this to the very edge. We're just creating some construction shapes, and I'll show you what we're going to do with these later. So we have 2 circles and 2 squares here. So the first thing I'm going to do with these circles is select both of them and click on this Subtract. And you see that it didn't work because I have this outer circle on top of the smaller circle. So I'm going to bring this back down. So we have this smaller circle on top or above the larger circle. So now we can subtract what's on top. We have this nice little circle stroke, and I'm going to make that black so you can see it a little bit better. And now what we want to do is join these 2 squares together, and if I double click inside of here a few times we can get to these nodes, and I'm going to just delete this one, and I'll double click on here a few times and delete this corner node. And now I'm going to select this circle and this triangle, and I'm going to click on this icon, which is include anything that intersects. So now we have a nice curve. We're going to bring this back into the artboard, we're going to center it, and we can see that it goes off the page here. So I'm going to zoom in holding down the Z key, and now I'll double click on this again. And the cool thing is every change that we've made here is non-destructive, so we can still click on any of these elements. And I'm going to double click again until I get to this guy here. Double click once more. And what I want to do is nudge this over. If I hold down Shift, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Probably 150 pixels. So I'll do that same thing over here. Okay. Come back in here and we have our nice curve. So we'll leave that alone here. We want to create another circle that's 24 pixels by 24 pixels. And turn off the border, turn on a shadow, and we'll just bring that right here. So this really should be sliding kind of in a slight curve just to give a little bit more creativity. So we've got that down, and now we want to create some play and fast forward icons here. So rather than create the icons, I like to use this Icons 8. It's a free tool with a paid version. And I'm just going to grab a few icons here for, I already searched fast forward. I'm going to search for play. I'm going to grab these icons here. And I can bring this play icon to the center here and this fast forward icon down here. I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of see what I'm doing down here. And because this radius is 38 pixels, I want to create a circle here. I want this to be 76 pixels because that is twice of 38. And that's this corner radius here on the iPhone 10. I'm just going to drop this in here. And if I hold down Shift Command and the right bracket, I can bring that forward. And the first thing I want to do is center this, but then I'd like to nudge this over to the right a little bit because it doesn't look quite centered because the play button is heavier on the left than the right. So that looks centered. I'm going to hold down Option again and copy this. And maybe I'll make these ones 38 pixels. And I'll just make it 20 pixels off to the side here. And just drop this little fast forward guy. Bring that back up. Drop them inside here, and I still want to nudge this over to the right, maybe 1 or 2 times. 1 time is good. And I do want to shrink this down just a little bit so it's not quite as prominent as the play button. So once I have these 2 objects, I can hold down Shift to select both of them. I'm just going to group it and then hold down Option, come over here, 20 pixels, and now I will rotate this the other way. And I can ungroup it now if I want. So we have our play button, our fast forward buttons. It's looking good so far. Now one thing I want to do right now is go back into here and turn on this display shape again. I want to make sure this is at the very top. Turn this on and we can see where everything's sitting in relation to the display. So now I'm going to hide this again, hold down Shift and select these objects. And I think I can get by with maybe having this 50 pixels or 40 pixels above that indicator. That looks pretty good. I'm going to hold down Shift and select these two items, and if I hold down Option here, I'm just going to bring this down a little bit, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. And that looks good. Now I want to show you a nice trick I like to use. So I'm going to click on these circles here, hold down Shift, and I've got these selected. Now I can click Command C and Command V to copy these 3 circles, so now I have 6. But what I want to do with these 3 circles is I want to hold down Shift and select this background, and actually subtract these circles, cut them out from this background here. So now that I cut them out, you can kind of see that there's a nice cutout here. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to cut these shapes out of these circles here and see the background behind these icons. So you can see by doing that, you can click on the shape, you can see any colors behind this icon. It just gives it some nice depth for the layers here. And now let's add some text. I'm going to click on the T key, and I'm going to call this song Feast Your Eyes. And I'm going to keep the style same as this one. So what I can do is I can hold down Command C and then Option Command V to start off with the style. But then I want to grab a color that's somewhere around here for this. I noticed that there is a transparency here. I'll just turn that back off. It's a nice blackish blue color, looks pretty good. And I can copy the same text here, and I'm going to grab this color if I hold down Command C, or if I add this to my document palette. I can click on here and paste this, and I'm going to call this Young Lions, and center all this, and we have the text here. I'm just going to create a little timestamp, 38 seconds. Bring this to the center here. So we've got things started quite nicely here. And I'm just going to tone this down a little bit. Cool. In this shape here, I actually want to use the same color, this dark green color that I picked. And then I can tone it down just a little bit so you can kind of barely see it. And now, if I hold down Shift and then I hold down Option, I'm just going to nudge things a little bit. Not really worried too much about spacing as I'm throwing this together, but I do like to nudge a little bit. Now over here we want a menu icon, so I'm going to zoom in and just create one really quick. I like it to be probably 24 pixels wide, right there, maybe 4 pixels tall. And I'll turn off the stroke here, and I'll make the radius 2 pixels so it looks rounded. And if I hold down Option, I'll just make this maybe 4 pixels in between each other. There we go. And I actually like to just bring this down a little bit and add just a little bit more personality into here. So I'm going to group all these together using the Boolean tool. I'm going to bring this over to the right. And if I hold down Command, I can zoom back out. And we want a little arrow button here. So I can use the same width of this guy here. If I hold down Command C, and I click away and click Command V, I can actually reuse this shape. And holding down Command and Shift will kind of lock the orientation here so I can get a nice 45-degree angle. And I'm just going to shorten this a little bit. Hold down Command C, Command V, and rotate this the other way. And we've got a nice arrow. I'm just going to group again using the Boolean tool. And if I zoom back out, you can see that here. And we've got our little drop-down arrow and our menu arrow here. Lastly, I want a little options menu here, so I can click back in this icons 8. And I will search for ... And look what I found. Now I made a mistake here. I'm going to Command Z and undo that. When you drop things in, you don't want to drop them in a certain square or else it'll fill it with that object. So I just drop it outside first. hold down Shift Command G a few times to just ungroup any elements. And I'll hold down Shift to rotate this guy. And I want to use the same color right here. And if I lock this ratio, I'm just going to make the height of this 24 pixels and bring this down here somewhere. Okay, so we've got a nice start. And this text here, I actually created a blue overlay, but I want to show you a really cool effect that I probably use too often. If you click here, and let's just search for, I'm going to search for convert. Okay, path, convert to path. So if we click on convert to path here, this is no longer text anymore. We created a bunch of nodes. I'm going to zoom in to show you what we've done. We can actually alter this now. And I'm going to do the same thing with this young lion's text. Object, path, convert to path. And now this is an object as well. I can actually grab these nodes and stretch them out and reshape the text. But I don't want to do that. But what I want to do is hold down Shift and select these two text layers and click on the layer behind it. And now I will subtract this text from the background. What that does is it gives us a nice color gradient here in the background so we can see the background. It's just a nice cutout here. And we might as well do the same thing with this dot dot dot. So we'll cut that back out. And we've got a nice start. Now lastly, we want to create some text for this album. So I'm going to click on this T key and type some text in here in all caps. And I'm going to make this white. And you can choose any text that you want, but I'm going to choose railway here and heavy. So we've got the album name here now. And what I'm going to do is just double click inside of here and just resize things a little bit. So I'm going to make this maybe 24 pixels. Let's try 23. Just want to match the width of the line below it. And then also for prey, maybe this is going to be 50 pixels. We'll start out there. Maybe 46. We'll try 45. Okay. So we've got a nice little design here. The predator is now the prey. And we have a nice simple design here now. The last thing we want to do is click inside of here, toggle this back on now. We can see that everything fits nicely within this iPhone X. And now the awesome thing about this, once you're done, you can click on this little icon right here. Make sure that your iPhone is plugged into the computer that you're designing with and that you have this XD mobile apps app installed. And if you do that, we can jump into the Adobe XD app and we can see that perfect design here with our iPhone X. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please visit my Udemy course, Learn Adobe XD. This course comes with exercise files included for each video, and you'll learn things like designing using fun tools like repeat grids, and even how to prototype your designs and share with friends to view on their devices. If you click on the link in the description, I'm having an exclusive deal for my YouTube subscribers that will give you 85% off. Thank you, and don't forget to click that subscribe button for more fun tips.